Okay, so this diff has been sitting for about 10 minutes or so now, so you can see the level of the oil has sunk down a little bit, so now we've got some room to get everything in and screwed together without squidging all the oil out everywhere. So basically all we're going to do is line up the 4 screw holes. There's no particular way with this diff, you just pop it on and just make sure the 4 screw holes are aligned. And then just, there you go, just hold that together. So I'll just hold it like this, and then we're just going to pop the 4 screws in. We just get these started off. You don't want to do one up by itself. You want to sort of go around in a bit of a star pattern. So I'm just going to get these started off. Get these in, and then I'll show you how I check the diff afterwards, just to make sure everything's how it should be. So like I said, we're going to do these in a bit of a star pattern, just so we keep everything nice and level. You don't have to go crazy with these. There is an O-ring in there, so just keep it nice and level, and then once it sort of bites, that's it really. There we go. So that feels lovely. You've got 0 backplay and a nice smooth action. So what I would do with that for myself with racing, just to keep everything so I know exactly how things are, I would use a diff checker. So when using one of these diff checkers, you've got to remember that the diff checker itself will change because of the drag in the gears. So you want to warm up the diff checker. So what I do is I've got a set figure that I know is when it sort of levels out. So I'll run it and sort of put a bit of pressure on it like this. And I know that when it gets sort of into the 40s, it's going to stay fairly consistent. So then I know that it's just testing the diff. And the same with the diff, the more you run it, the freer it's going to get. So you just want to sort of run it in, sort of just, give it a spin and just make sure everything's bedded in nicely. And then you've got a rough idea, and you can sort of write this number down, stick it in I've got like a little notebook I keep, and I know there's 130 7K freshly built diff. So if I build another 7K diff and it comes out with a completely different figure further down the line, I know something's not right. Maybe I've got a damaged gear, or maybe I picked up the wrong bottle of oil. It's just something to know that this is what you'd expect when you build it. It's going to come out at sort of like, this 129, 130 now. So you've got a good idea of where you are. The other tip I would give you is I would weigh, just open the scales, I would weigh a full diff, and I'll explain why. So this full diff now weighs 22.33 grams. So if I was at the track and I was going to rebuild this diff, the chances of me getting all of the old oil out at a track when you're between rounds, etc., doing things quickly, the chances of me getting that, say I'm going to change this now to a 5,000, the chances of me getting all of that 7 out is almost impossible, unless you really spend time doing it. And if you haven't got the time, then you're always going to leave a residue, a little bit of the 7 in there. So if you know that your diff is 22.3 grams, you can take it apart, and when you put the oil back in for the next one, instead of doing 1.5 grams, put all the parts of the diff on the scales and put the amount of oil that you need to get it to 22.3 grams. Then you know that you've got the same 1.5 grams of oil. maybe 0.1 of those grams is going to be 7, and maybe that's not ideal, perfect, for perfect conditions. But when you're at the track testing, it's going to be better than having a 2 full diff. And putting the 1.5 grams in, well, if you've still got 0.1 gram in, you're now 1.6. If you've got 0.2 grams in, you're now 1.7. You're not going to stay consistent. So by knowing what the total is, you'll always stay consistent. But ideally, you want to completely clean it, brake cleaner, get all the oil out of it, and then start from scratch. Well, I hope that's been some help, and we'll be back with the next part of the car soon.